Yes, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Welcome back to yet another live broadcast on your favorite football updates channel. It's a pleasure to be back with you on this beautiful Saturday night, the 1st of August 2026, that I do come to you live from Kampala, Uganda, with only 6 minutes past the top of the hour of 11 p.m. Looks like we're quite on time for this one per tonight's broadcast, as we intend to once again indulge you with the latest stuff from the world of sport, including predominantly transfers, the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow, Scotland. Those ones continue. Unfortunately, I don't know. Maybe I don't know if it's the access I have to, but most of the sporting disciplines that I've been able to chance myself onto have been quite boring. Javelin, long jump, indoor cycling, those kinds of things. Not my cup of tea. Not my cup of tea, I must be honest. But it is what it is when it comes to that. Anyways, I hope you guys have had a wonderful day. It's been one of those days, quite very rainy in the afternoon, and leading to the conclusion of a cold evening. But we're really, really glad for the rains because it felt like it had been a while since it had last, washed up on us. So it was good. It was good. Hi, Rio Dandy. How are you doing? Good to have you on the podcast. I hope you're doing okay. In as far as things go, in as far as your life goes. I hope you've had a wonderful day. Jesus Christ. Did I not edit that? Sorry, we lost to Spurs. I did get a glimpse of that game in which Chelsea lost by 2 goals to 1, conceding a late goal that was scored by Richardson Andrade for a 10-man Spurs to beat up against Chelsea. But do not read too much into that. It's preseason. You saw a multitude of youngsters. Yes, it was a letdown to lose the game in the context of it, but it's preseason. Do not read too much into it. It's not like Chelsea had fielded their best outfit there. Either, anyways, no had Spurs in any sense. But yeah, lots of preseason games have been played thus far. And just as we came live, Arsenal had just beaten up against, Girona by 4 goals to 1 in one of those games. I did see Man United beat up against Atletico de Madrid by 2 goals to 1. Brian Mbeumo on target there for the Red Devils. So, yeah, it's been one of those days. Then there was also a game between Man City and Inter Milan. So it did feel like a blockbuster of a weekend for when it comes to club friendlies. Arsenal have been playing in Spain. Then, I think Chelsea and Spurs were playing in Hong Kong. I couldn't see the game. Did Esteval score a banger? Unfortunately, I did not catch the Esteval goal. I think when it comes to preseason friendlies, I oftentimes passively watch them. It's not like I'm glued to the screen to see every little bit of action, but I did not get the chance to watch that goal. The goal I got the chance to watch was that of Richardson, and then I think might have watched. Did I watch Tottenham's equalizer? No, I did not watch Tottenham's equalizer. But yeah, so I cannot tell you whether it was a banger. Maybe all I can say is try and enlarge yourself with a couple of highlights in case you can catch them on the Chelsea, YouTube channel. I will also be bringing myself to, catching up on a few highlights. Anyways, in tonight's podcast, we'll be discussing matters Arsenal because tonight they seem to have laid all the way when it came to transfer news and speculation. Obviously, you could argue for all the right and wrong reasons. They've been at it. So I don't know whichever way you slice it. They've been at top of the food chain when it came to reports that made the rounds this evening. Okay, and yeah, we'll get to discuss transfers. There's quite a multitude of them that is happening. Things are happening really, really fast. Players are making switches. Danny Welbeck has been unveiled as a new Chelsea player, saying that the guys know in the dressing room, I am a shoulder to lay on. For sure, you can always come to me and talk to me about anything. So that's Danny Welbeck. So we'll get to discuss him. I know for an absolute fact that Jordan Henderson's deal will also get announced soon. He said, "I'm really honored to come to a club of this stature at what feels like a really, really exciting time. I have had fantastic conversations with the manager and already feel that connection." So those were some of the words of Danny Welbeck upon joining Chelsea. Then now, to Arsenal. Let's begin there. Let's go there because they form the gist of our conversation tonight. Now, I must say, I did not see this coming. However, I had hoped it would happen. Not so much so because I was desperate for Christian Norgaard to leave, but I felt there must be a Premier League team out there that could use the services of a player of his experience, and a player of his quality. He may have not gotten the biggest opportunity to showcase what he's capable of, but when you have a player that can play as a central midfielder and as a defender, a centre back, that little bit of versatility is something to be welcomed. Now, Christian Norgaard is a player that has made the switch or is on the verge of completing a move from Arsenal to Everton, provided he passes his medical. When the medical will be done, I do not know. I miss the old Brazilian days, Ronaldo, Kaká, Ronaldinho, etc. Sorry, I'm crying. Don't we all? Don't we all? Anyways, it does feel like the wider world does miss those days. So anyways, for those of you that are regulars on this channel, those of you that follow our live conversations, and those of you that are care to check out our conversations that we put out in pre-recorded shows in video format or under the video section of the channel, you must know that these are some of the names that I've mentioned before in the work of Arsenal and what needs to be done and what sort of players need to be moved on and so Christian Norgaard is one of those names that has featured quite highly on that list. So you remember, I talked of Kepa Arrizabalaga, Christian Norgaard. I talked about Gabriel Jesus Fernando. I talked about Gabriel Martinelli. I talked about Leandro Trossard. I talked about Ethan Nwaneri. I wouldn't be too surprised if the right offer came and Miles Lewis Kelly was let go, but although that one seems a little bit unlikely given how he wrapped up last season, then Ben White is another figure that we discussed. So keep your eyes peeled to those. Keep your eyes peeled to those. So now, anyways, in an exclusive about I think it was about 7 p.m. For us when David Austin dropped the bombshell saying Everton had reached an agreement in principle with Arsenal to sign Christian Norgaard. Still needs formalizing, but the 32-year-old midfielder is set to join Everton from Arsenal for a fee in the region of £7 million and expected to undergo medical next week ahead of a proposed move. So first and foremost, Gradao Gibbs, let me get your comment in a bit. Kindly indulge me on this one. So, first of all, it's a brilliant move for a player of Christian Norgaard. Going from Arsenal to Everton, obviously, is a downgrade. But isn't he lucky a player? You go from Brentford, one summer, go to Arsenal, win a Premier League title, and then go to Everton. He's one of those players that Arsenal players have spoken highly of, in terms of what he offers to a team and the dressing room, in terms of leadership, showing up every day, even when constantly he wasn't the guy that was being selected to feature in games. He still kept his head up. Obviously, he had the slow start to the season. I think he had an injury to deal with, so he did not get the direct start to the season, but eventually we all know what happened. He did not get to feature much for the Arsenal in as far as the Premier League was concerned. So, but that notwithstanding, he will look back to that 1 year with Arsenal in a beautiful way. Obviously, at a personal level, maybe deep down, I do not know what kind of person he is. He will reflect back on it as maybe, yes, I did not get the opportunity to wear that shirt as often, maybe that much, to play that much. I would have loved to play for them that much and maybe that long. But it sort of feels he will look back on it with a little bit of pride, because, I mean, getting a move at the age of 31 to Arsenal, go to North London, win a Premier League title, qualify for a Champions League final, for which, by the way, he had been a key part of predominantly during the league phase of the games, because he played I think he played a couple of those released there. And yeah, he'll look back at it with a bit of pride. He did feature in Carabao Cup games. They made it they made to as far as the final. He did feature, I think, in the FA Cup. They made it to the quarterfinals. So if you ask him, maybe last season for him was a glowing one. Anyways, so he's gone to Everton, which for Everton, I know for a fact that they've been in the market searching for a central midfielder to replace Idris Kanagwe, who, upon the expiration of his contract, refused to renew terms with the Toffees and therefore moved on. So unless he does not pass a medical, that's the only way the deal collapses. But majority of the formal steps are being taken. I don't know. Is it forbidden for players to do medicals on weekends? You know? So I don't know. Anyways, he's been away with Arsenal in Girona for preseason, and that's why he was a no future. He was a no future in today's game, because obviously Arsenal did not want to risk him anything whatsoever to that effect, to try and play him just for the sake of playing him, to see what happens. But having agreed that deal in principle, for him to be moving to Everton, it does work that way. We've seen it with even Yan Diomande, who is a target for Real Madrid. We've seen that he's called in sick apparently and did not travel with the team for their Austria training camp. So yeah. And basically, that's about it. He's been part of the Arsenal camp on the other side of the aisle. So you did not expect that he would feature. I'm trying to scan through just to be with absolute certainty. But he was a no-show in that game as Arsenal beat up against Girona by 4-1. And therefore, I think Everton is a good fit. First and foremost, I think he will get a lot of playing time there. I suspect he will be in that midfield partnership alongside James Garner with the likes of Kenan Drisbury Hall. I know that Everton have communicated that they are not interested in selling Ilman Ndiaye, who has been a target for Al Hilal as well as Manchester United. So that's the Senegalese international. One of those players that people like raving about. You know, there's a lot of sense of belief in him. So for Ilman Ndiaye, but we'll have to wait and see. But that's the deal regarding Christian Norgaard making the move from Arsenal to Everton. The expectation is that he will be traveling during the weekend to return maybe to the UK to undergo his medical. That's my expectation. It's only predictive, not with absolute certainty. Excuse me. Sometimes players get to do their transfers overseas. So in terms of his Arsenal career, obviously he never scored a goal for them, but he featured in 6 Premier League games. He featured in 7 Premier League games and 6 UEFA Champions League games. Then he did also feature in 3 EFL Cups or games. That gives you a tally of about 16 games that he played for the Gunners. Obviously, that's very few games. But at the end of the day, he'll simply have that made it look back onto, and his shirt as to say, yeah, I did well for I was part of that Arsenal making history side who won the Premier League title for the first time in 22 years. So there it is. Anyways, moving on to your comments. Gradao Game says, Rob, what about updating the channel's logo? It still has the 2022 World Cup poll. Guys, when it comes to the logo, I'm not a good graphics designer. That is something that I just simply came up with using online tools. So, and I've been, it's one of those things that once in a while I get to think about, but unfortunately I do not have the disposable resources to have it, professionally done. It's one of those things that you think about, it's just not priority, but at the back of your mind, it is there. It has to get done at some point. I don't know if there is a good Samaritan out there that would offer to design for us a more formal Football Tribe UG logo. So that ball, it was in itself a cutout. The initial ball that I wanted to use did not reflect well on certain backgrounds. So that's just it for me. I have a couple of friends who are into graphics designs, but I've never reached out to any because I would not want to exploit them. I would have wanted to pay them something for it to be formally designed, but I've just not had the resources. I do not have them as of yet, unless, please mark my words, unless there is a good Samaritan out there that is a good graphics designer that would be willing to do us a pro bono and come up with a couple of sample designs for the Football Tribe UG logo. I'll be open to taking them up on that offer and see what they can come up with. But without so much as changing the initial impressions of it, but they can also get creative. It's not cast in stone. They can get creative with the design itself and let us know. So I'm really open to ideas. So but that's all I can say about the logo. If you're interested on it, we can talk because I want to help you. My socials are there online. So under in the channel bio, you can reach out on any of the platforms, on X, on Instagram, LinkedIn, and I don't know if TikTok is among those that are listed, but yeah, you can reach out and we engage and we see what you can share with us, and we take it from there and see what happens. Anyways, that's about the logo, but that's also a good observation. So thank you so much. Can I put my WhatsApp number here? I don't know. Won't people invade on your privacy? Because putting your number may be a little too sensitive. I do not know. I know people have asked me for my WhatsApp number, and I often refer them to come to my inbox on my socials because those ones are public. But when it comes to a WhatsApp number, sometimes you get spammed by online people sending you all sorts of unsolicited messages. And our friends from India tend to have that habit of sending unsolicited messages. Sometimes it's very common with them. I do not know whether it's a thing they like doing. I just don't know. So maybe to protect your privacy and information, I'd rather you reach out, but in any of my social inboxes, and we can have a chat. Okay. You say you formed a design. Okay, that's interesting. Then Ash said, okay. Ash said, hey, what are you discussing? I was discussing Christian Norgaard's move to Everton. We defeated Chelsea 4 wins in a row. What do you mean you defeated Chelsea 4 wins in a row? I seem to remember Chelsea beating you by 0-0 last season. In one of those games where Tottenham Hotspurs looked their worst. They had an XG of, I think, 0.0001, something like that. So I don't know what you mean by 4 wins in a row, as a Tottenham fan. Correct me, I stand corrected if I'm wrong. Unless, I don't know if you're talking about 4 wins in a row in preseason fixtures, but in as far as all competitions are concerned, last I checked, yeah, Tottenham were on the losing end of a game against Chelsea last campaign. So anyways, thanks for that. But we'll get to discuss that in a bit. Moving on. Okay, moving on to the other story, still involving Arsenal. Meanwhile, okay, let's not dwell too much onto that one. Now, in a similar fashion, okay, before we get to that, you know the Bruno Guimaraes story. I said it's one of those stories that I've grown tired of discussing. But unfortunately, I do not discuss it for me. I discuss it for my viewers, my audience, So I do not want to make it personal to me. But a deal is yet to be formalized between Newcastle and Arsenal. The conversations have been ongoing between the two clubs, at least according to Sam Dean of The Telegraph. He did say that a deal is yet to be reached upon for the transfer of of Bruno Guimaraes. Sam Dean, who, by the way, has written a book about Arsenal called The Inside Story of Arsenal's rebirth under Mikel Arteta. Sam Dean. Then it's due to come out in October. Then Bruno Guimaraes, he says, and I quote, Bruno Guimaraes' deal is not done, but it's getting closer. Christian Norgaard is heading to Everton, first reported by David Austin, assuming he passes medical, / terms are finalized, a similar pattern to Arsenal's Zolis interest. Trossard out, Zolis in. Now, just to add to that, the expectation around Arsenal is that once it is formalized that Christian Norgaard has completed his move from Arsenal to Everton, then that is when they intend to move forward with the Bruno Guimaraes deal. All what they wanted to do is agree everything in principle, then move on a player from their squad, and then they can then sanction the incoming of Bruno Guimaraes. I have been one of those who was wondering, come on, guys, you cannot dwell on this deal for ages. We cannot be at it for forever. At some point, it has to be wrapped up. It has to be wrapped up. But it felt like a lot is being said and a little is being done. So now with that context, it brings it to, it brings, I think, all the pieces together. That really they were negotiating this deal with Newcastle for Bruno Guimaraes. On the other side, they were, I don't know if they were looking for potential buyers for Christian Norgaard, or they were exploring or having conversations with other clubs that may have been interested in the Norwegian midfielder. So according to Keith Downey, he says Newcastle United are braced for an Arsenal offer for Bruno Guimaraes as talks continue behind the scenes via intermediaries. Newcastle's stance is unchanged. They want to keep their captain and are puzzled that no formal club-to-club approach has been made to this point, despite reports to the contrary. It's likely to take a bid upwards of £80 million for Newcastle to consider a sale. One source has told us Arsenal are expected to make a formal approach soon. They have been exploring a deal via intermediaries over the past few weeks. Guimaraes has told Newcastle he would like to move to Arsenal if they receive an acceptable offer. Now, again, this is contrary to multiple reports that we've been receiving. It's that case of a chicken and the egg, of who came first, So Arsenal sources keep informing people that, club-to-club conversations have taken place. Newcastle's sources keep telling journalists that no club-to-club conversations have taken place. Now, this is coming through according to the Times, that Bruno Guimaraes to have Arsenal Medical on Monday after an £80 million deal agreed. Brazilian midfielder 28 is set to join the North London club from Newcastle United on a 5-year deal, with Christian Norgaard expected to make a £7 million move to Everton. That's coming in from the Times Sport. So again, yesterday, what was all over the press was that Arsenal had reached an agreement in principle for Bruno Guimaraes in a deal worth 90 million euros, which is the equivalent of about 77 million pounds. That was being widely reported, So, and in fact, it came out that he had requested for a couple of more days before traveling to join the rest of the Newcastle camp. I think I don't know if they're in Malaga or something. So we've had to receive all these contradicting reports. But now, using my assessment of the facts, reading between the lines of what has happened over the last couple of hours and days, this is what I'll say. Because even Fabrizio Romano said, Arsenal are now set to accelerate and close Bruno Guimaraes' deal ASAP. That was his final statement after saying that Christian Norgaard to Everton was a here we go. Now, I can tell you, it's not 100% watertight or airtight, but I can tell you that like 98% chance club-to-club talks have happened between Arsenal and Newcastle. Now, it is the levels that could vary. I'll give you an example. If you and I are friends and we have wives, and you and I are speaking over, let's say, the sale of my house to you, if society speaks to my wife, who I have not told about our conversations, she will deny everything and say, there's no such negotiations happening. We're not considering selling our home. But if sources are speaking to you or me, we could be acknowledging that conversations are happening. In other words, you'd have two contradicting reports because the people reporting on the story are speaking to different sources at different levels. So I have a feeling that those reporting that club-to-club talks have happened are speaking to the actual people involved in these talks, who acknowledge that to the Arsenal side, who acknowledge that, yeah, talks have happened. But then on the flip side of the Newcastle side, the people that are reporting, because even the club has come out, even the club is denying, a formal contact from the Arsenal. So what it then feels like that the people that are reporting on that or saying that out are not privy to this information. I don't know if you guys are familiar with PR, public relations. As a public relations officer, if you ask me about an incident in the organization that I have zero knowledge about, I'll say, I do not know anything to that extent, or there's not been such a conversation. That's if I'm not privy to conversations at board level or chairman level. It could be something above my pay grade, and therefore I am not privy to that information. However, if you speak to my bosses, they could be giving you a different information. For as long as whatever story we are speaking about is not in any way detrimental to the brand. I'll give you an example. If, let's say, I was a public relations officer of a religious institution in the born-again realm, and let's say the lead pastor and the wife welcomed a pair of twins, but I do not know about it. So if you ask me, I would say, not that I'm aware of. All I know is that the pastor's wife is expecting. So I give you that. It's a statement of fact, they're expecting. But if you speak to the pastor's wife if you speak to the pastor's wife's maid or personal assistant, they could confirm to you that she has given birth to twins. In other words, there is a gap between the personal life of the pastor and me in my professional capacity as public relations officer for the institution that they serve. I can reach out to them and seek that information. But if they deny it to me and say nothing has happened to that extent or no comment, I'll simply also keep it at that. But you who has cultivated your sources well enough and probably are speaking to their mate or PA, they could insinuate it to you that it is true. Therefore, the people that are quoting me as a source will say it is not true that the pastor, his wife, gave birth to twins. But the people reporting, citing the sources close to the pastor's wife as to the level of a house help or a PA, could also be reporting differently. So I feel that's what is happening with this Arsenal story at Newcastle, you know. So let's wait and see. Wow, that's interesting. Anyways, so I can see, according to Grim Bailey over Team Talk, he says Bruno Guimaraes is hoping that he will not have to fly out to Spain on Sunday to link up with the Newcastle United, with the Brazilian international increasingly confident his move to Arsenal will be finalized before then. Sources have confirmed to, Team Talk. Now, here's the catch. If you're Bruno Guimaraes, the last thing you'd want to do is travel to Spain on Sunday and then be summoned back on a Monday or Tuesday to then undergo your medical at London Colony or in London. In other words, he would want to avoid a situation where he has to link up with his current teammates, that's the Newcastle teammates, and then a day later, he's having to tell them goodbye. You'd rather not reintegrate, you know? You'd rather not reintegrate. So it's a bit of a difficult situation because remember, he's not going to take the direction or the route of Alexander Isak to go and protest and etc. etc. No, he's going to remain respectful to the club for which he still is under contract, but also the club that he captains. He simply communicated to them that I would like to join Arsenal if an acceptable offer comes on the table. Now, obviously, he'll be getting constant updates from his representatives in terms of agents to tell him how far the deal has gone. And depending on how far it has gone, it either gives him hope that it is about to get done or it is far from getting done. Unfortunately for him, time is not on his side that he can constantly sit there and wait until it gets done. He has to report back to the club for pre-season. So we'll just have to wait and see how that one goes down. But that's the update from that side for Bruno Guimaraes. The expectation is once Everton confirm the deal for Christian Norgaard, then, only then, or if that is done, that is when things will happen, perhaps or they will then start to move really, really fast. The way Christos Zolis was once Leandro Trossard was confirmed to have moved in the opposite direction to the extent of Christos Zolis moving to Arsenal. So there's that. Anyways, let's move on. But before we do, really? Anyways, somebody asked me a question. This was about the agreed fee for Christian Norgaard. it was in a private message. They were asking me if it's the right value. No, I don't think so. I don't think that's the right value. £7 million sounds too little for a 32-year-old Premier League winner. Now, I don't think Arsenal would have taken a loss on him, because in terms of value for money and overall contribution, you would say he played his role in a pivotal season where they achieved what they wanted to achieve. He came in at about £11 million, possibly rising to 15. Now, chances are it has not risen to 15, because it could have been that it rises to 15 if he stays at Arsenal for maybe a given period of time. Maybe because Arsenal won the Premier League title, it rose to 11 or 12 with add-ons. So him going for £7 million sounds shy, sounds little. I feel like Arsenal could have negotiated better. But Arsenal have never been good salesmen. They've always struggled to sell players for the right fee and to the right teams. And this is what I've said. Oftentimes, for as long as it's a big team selling to a lesser team, chances are the big team is going to get ripped off. And the reverse is true, that when a small team is selling to a big team, the small team is going to rip off a big team. Like, that's just how it works. Why? Because you're richer than them. And therefore, if you want their player, they're going to milk you for what it is. However, oftentimes when big clubs sell players, like Arsenal, they want to move on players off of their books and replace them with better players. So if you're Arsenal, you're thinking to yourself, if I stick to my guns and I do not get the right offer, I'll end up staying with Christian Norgaard. But is that what I really want? No. I want to move the player on because I want to replace them with a better player, because my ambitions for the season are as such. So on the fee there, I do not think I agree with the valuation. Okay, Gadao asked the question, will Ederson stay at Atlanta because the transfer failed to United? Yes, Ederson will stay at Atlanta. He did renew terms with Atlanta. He put pen to paper on a new contract that runs until June 2031. That's a 5-year contract. So expect him to stay at Atlanta. Bakola is not an upgrade on Gakpo. Ash, please do not look at Bradley Bakola as a replacement for Cody Gakpo. Now, the challenge is that Bradley Bakola is a right-footed player coming in to replace a left-footed player. Make sense? We are accustomed to the inverted wing roles, where a left-footed player plays on the right side, and the reverse is true. However, in Liverpool hunting down Bradley Bakola, they are not looking to replace Cody Gakpo. They are looking for a squad replacement of Mohamed Salah. In other words, expect to see a right-footed player playing on the right-hand side. That will be the expectation. That's why, now, he's good with both feet, but predominantly the right foot. Same applies for Yan Diomande, predominantly right-footed, but uses both feet. I do not think both execute with both feet to the extent of Ousmane Dembele. I don't think so. But that's the assessment that Liverpool have done. When you look at left-footed wingers that are really, really good out there, Liverpool's options are quite limited. Now, they are quite limited if they want to dig from the big pool. If you want to explore, those options are not limited. Because I often say the competition for a limited number of players by big clubs is an indictment on the scouting departments of those respective clubs. Because all of you fight for Yan Diomande, Bradley Bakola, that means your scouts are not doing good enough a job. Why are they not coming up with alternative options? They may not be just as good, but their potential must be as big, you know? So look at it in those terms. Look at it in those terms. Anyways, let's move on. I think that's about it with the Bruno Guimaraes story, with the Christian Norgaard story. I hope I've answered all questions. Oh, Jesus Christ. Excuse me. Let's move on to club friendlies. Today, some games were played. Like I said, Arsenal were the last team in action today. They did play against Girona. They took an early lead through Kai Havertz in the 16th minute, with Max Dorman providing the assist. Then Christos Zoris scored in the 30th minute. Then you had Max Dorman also on the score sheet in the 53rd minute, as well as Gabriel Jesus just 2 minutes later. While Martinez scored what turned out to be the only consolation for Girona in the 50th minute. So Arsenal, they had a good game. To be fair, or to be honest, it was a good game. They were dominant in the way they applied themselves. Kai Havertz was one of those that was withdrawn, and Victor Gyökeres, I think after the hydration break, these games had hydration breaks. So yeah, but Arsenal were good side on the day. Then moving on to other friendlies that were played, like I told you guys. Where's my spread? Where's my list of results? Okay, yes, in the other results, Manchester United beat up against Atletico de Madrid by 2-1. Brani Mbeumo scoring both goals, one being a penalty, while Mau Ortiz was the goal scorer. He did score for Atletico de Madrid to open the account. So that game was played. Then Real Madrid did share the spoils with Fiorentina in a 2-2 draw. Moises Kean were the goal scorers for Fiorentina. Fiorentina have former Manchester United goalkeeper David De Gea Quintana in their goal. So that one also did happen. Then the other game did involve Man City sharing the spoils with Inter Milan in a 1-1 draw. In that one, Mobama did score for Man City to open the account in the 14th minute. Antoine Semenyo provided that assist, while Benjamin Pavard on the other side scored for Inter Milan to restore parity in the 20th minute, and then the rest was history. Then the game went to penalties, in which Inter Milan won 3-1 on penalties. Then the other key game, still speaking friendlies for today, was Chelsea against Tottenham Hotspur. Chelsea lost to Tottenham Hotspur by 2-1 in that game. Tottenham Hotspur reduced to 10 men with the sending off of Kevin Danso, but Sandro Tonali was the goal scorer for Tottenham Hotspur, while William Esteban scored to restore parity for Chelsea. Then in the second half, Richarlison Andrade scored in the second minute of stoppage time to make sure that Tottenham Hotspur won it by 2-1. I liked Lucas Bergville. He looked good in that Tottenham side on the day. Ash says, I will take Savinho and Gakpo. Now, by the way, interestingly, Tottenham Hotspurs have, for quite some time, been interested in signing Cody Gakpo from Liverpool. However, looking at the level of transfer business that Liverpool have done in this transfer window, I do not think, certainly not, that they would be willing to sanction a move for Cody Gakpo to leave the club to join Tottenham Hotspur. I just do not think that is going to happen, But nonetheless, Tottenham Hotspur have not come out to express interest in this transfer window to try and sign the Dutch forward or / winger. Then also, you talk of Savinho. Savinho did request Manchester City to let him go, but I don't know if Tottenham Hotspur have been able to go back in with a formal offer for the 22-year-old Brazilian international to see whether they can get a deal done. But so far, nothing has happened to that effect. We'll have to wait and keep our tabs on that story. Then in the other friendlies, Borussia Dortmund did beat up against FC Tokyo by 0-0. Brighton beat up against Strasbourg by 4-3, while RB Leipzig beat SC Val by 4-0. Bayer Leverkusen beat Essen by 3-0, while AC Roma lost to Cardiff City by 4-1. Meanwhile, Barcelona the other day shared the spoils with Birmingham City, I think in a 2-2 draw before Barcelona, I think, won on penalties. Stoke City and Valencia shared the spoils in a 1-1 draw. So those are some of the club friendlies that did happen. Lazio were in action, Levante, it is Fulham. So many of those are being played. Make no mistake, there's always plenty of action. For as long as you have access, you can indulge yourself in watching any of those games. Okay, then Chelsea are set to renew or to extend Joao Pedro's contract. Joao Pedro will sign a new long-term contract at Chelsea in the upcoming days. Verbal agreement done, all set for longer deal until June 2033, and salary increase after calls from top 3 clubs turned down by Chelsea. Be rest assured, Barcelona was definitely one of those, because I told you, for as long as Barcelona are still failing in their attempt to pursue a deal for Julian Alvarez, they will turn their attention to Joao Pedro. Now, I don't know who advises these players. You're already on a long-term contract. You only arrived last summer, and I understand you'll have Chelsea and all that. You could be on good wages, and maybe the new contract comes with improved wages. Well and good. But the more you commit yourself, the more it becomes difficult for you to get a move, unless you say, Chelsea is it for you. That's the ceiling for you. Like you don't think you can go any higher. You can never join the Real Madrid, the Bayern Munich, the Barcelona, But you remember, it happened with Nico Williams. Barcelona were interested, Arsenal were interested, among other clubs. He ends up staying at Atletico Bilbao, agrees to a new contract, and guess what? It's a 10-year contract. And I'm thinking to myself, what on God's green earth have you agreed to? What do you mean 10 years? Good salary. Last season was not good. Release clause is anywhere around 95 million euros, 100 million euros, depending on who comes in for him. But that's about it. Then Chelsea are set to improve their bid for Pepe Chavaria, as negotiations with Rayo Vallecano are moving forward. New proposal for the Spanish left back is expected, as Xabi Alonso is insistent he would want to learn the services of the player. Then PSG wrapping up the signing of Magnus Aklecho from their rivals in AC Monaco. Expect that to be done, while also they did open talks with Ajax to sign Mika Godets. That's the 21-year-old young Belgian young talent. Very, very good player, exciting, promising talent. That one is also happening. Then final details for Randall Colomwani to Juventus. Permanent deal, 38 million euros plus 12 million euros in expected add-ons. No longer a loan with obligation to buy, but permanent transfer, contract valid until 2031. Slightly over 5 million euros as net pay per season. And Fabrizio Romano says, here we go, since Tuesday, confirmed. So that's, Randall Colomwani, who spent last season on loan at Tottenham Hotspur. Then Juventus's new signing, Karim Al-Begovic, did arrive in Turin to undergo his medical and formal steps to complete his move. So a lot of that is happening in as far as things go. Okay, I told you about Yan Diomande. He did not, travel with Austria for preseason. So as he anticipates wrapping up a move with Real Madrid. Then PSG remain also in direct contacts with Ferran Torres' camp over a move this summer. Barcelona do not want to sell Ferran Torres. The only way is if Ferran Torres asks to leave the club. PSG in the Goditz and Ferran as Kang In and Ramos, and by leave plus Liverpool push for Bacola. So you can see PSG are trying to be proactive to get replacements with the anticipated departure of Mbaye. We know that Lee Kang-in has already moved to Atletico de Madrid, whereas there is an expectation that Bradley Bacola could end up at Liverpool. So expect that to happen. Despite recent rumors, Xavi and Marcelino are not close to become new Al Ahly head coach at this stage. That's according to Fabrizio Romano. Also reports coming through. Jesus Christ. You know, the funny thing about transfer windows is that every time a transfer deal is moving towards a certain direction, fans are quick to, come up with those graphics designs of those said players putting on their club fatigue or outfits as if to paint a picture. It's a done deal, that rush. Anyways, it is what it is. Anyways, let's run through the latest transfer gossip and speculation. Because Egyptian forward Mohamed Salah, 34, is close to joining Turkish side Trabzonspor, despite having verbally agreed to join Besiktas after leaving Liverpool this summer. That's according to Foot Mercato. Bayern Munich remain interested in signing Manchester United striker Benjamin Sesko, 23, as the Slovenian forward will allow England's Harry Kane, 33, to play a deeper role in the future. That's according to CF Bayern Insider. Aston Villa and England defender Ezri Konsa, 28, is interested in a move to Arsenal. That's according to Court Offside. While Manchester City boss Enzo Maresca wants to work again with Chelsea winger Pedro Neto, with City exploring a move for the 26-year-old Portuguese forward valued at £70 million. That's according to The Sun. Now, in what world would it be sensible for Man City to spend £70 million on Pedro Neto? Make it make sense. Even if you love the player, if I'm Man City, I would be saying no to that. I'll be saying no to that. Use Antoine Semenyo. Use Jeremy Doku. Chelsea, Tottenham have joined Newcastle in the race to sign Atlanta centre-back Gio Scalvini, 22, with the Magpies prepared to open with a 34 million bid for the Italian defender, valued at £42 million. That's according to The Sun. Liverpool midfielder Curtis Jones is ready to push for a move to Inter Milan after a deal worth €25 million was rejected for the 25-year-old, but discussions remain ongoing over a package worth around £30 million that would match the Reds' valuation of the England international. That's according to Team Talk. Paris Saint-Germain have stepped up their pursuit for Ajax winger Mika Godetz, who is valued at £52 million, with the Premier League sides Arsenal, Liverpool, Manchester United and Tottenham Hotspur all being informed of the 21-year-old Belgian forward's growing interest, according to Team Talk. Chelsea forward Joao Pedro set to sign a new contract. That's according to The Athletic. I've told you about that. Manchester United are unlikely to sign Everton attacker Ilman Ndiaye, with Al Hilal willing to pay £75 million that the Toffees want for the Senegalese international. That's according to Football Insider. While Fulham are interested in making a move for Republic of Ireland striker Troy Parrott, 24, from Eredivisie side AZ Alkmaar, but first competition from Ajax, PSV Eindhoven, Real Betis and Como. That's according to TalkSport. Then Benfica striker Franjo Ivanovic is close to joining Hull City after talks began over the terms of a deal that will likely see the 22-year-old Croatian forward join initially on loan, according to Record. Raymond Kanguma says Raymond Kanguma says, hi, Jeso be appointed the manager of Newcastle right now. Jeso announced as Newcastle manager. Yeah, we are simply waiting for the formal announcement, but he is coming in to replace Ed Howe. And I'm sure Raymond Kanguma, wherever you are, you must be one of the happiest Newcastle fans that is out there. Okay. You know, Arsenal in beating up against Girona did win a small trophy. I never understand these pre-season trophies. What do these big clubs do with them? You know, they go and play an Audi Cup, Emirates Cup. Now I don't know what cup that is, Asian Cup. Anyway, let's wait and see. Let's wait and see how things go. But so far, that's some of the gist of the conversation. Okay, okay. We'll Luciano Spalletti is still at Juventus. And he was speaking about Zion Suzuki. He says, I really like Zion. We rate him highly because he's a goalkeeper with great potential. If you look at the media, he's attracting interest from several clubs, which is also why there is which is why he's prohibitively expensive at the moment. So, you know, now, guys, let me ask this question. What do you think would be the ideal situation or thing to do with Mukalo Modric? I think if we are Chelsea, I'd sanction a loan move for him, preferably to stay within Europe, not to go back to Ukraine, by the way. But when I say within Europe, I'm talking about the top 5 leagues. It could be Spain, it could be France, it could be Germany, it could be Italy, or staying within the Premier League to go to a lower side. But I would sanction a loan move for him to go and sort of where he will be guaranteed more playing time. And then have his career get back on track if he can behave, you know. Oh, excuse me. Arsenal fans are busy online raving about Christos Zolis. Oh. Jesus Christ. Anyways, you say hi. I'm happy, Newcastle fan, that Jeso be announced. Okay. You also talk about Tyler Adams and Joao Paulinho, and Von Holt should sign for 85 million euros. I don't know. By the way, Newcastle, you've already made, let's say, approximately about 150 million pounds. Anyway, you've spent majority of that money on multiple signings. But what's going to be Newcastle's marquee signing? I feel they need one of those to sort of send a message to the fans that we are still in this for, you know. Jose Mourinho looking furious there. Anyways, guys, let's wrap up this conversation. It's been worthwhile doing this with you, you know. But we'll catch up tomorrow. Thank you so much, Raymond Kangumba, Gradao Games. Ash, always a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Haha, was Norgaard signing money laundering or something? It's mad. It made zero sense. No. I don't think it will be money laundering. Here is what happened. I'd want to assume Arsenal signed a backup player who they knew was going to be third choice. And I'm sure even he knew that. He was coming in to replace a Jorginho in the squad, kind of. So, unfortunately for him, he did not get sufficient playing time because he ended up featuring in 16 games for Arsenal. 7 in the Premier League, 6 in the Champions League, and about 3 in the Carabao Cup. So, in Arsenal moving him on, they're simply creating space within that squad to avoid being in a Chelsea position kind of scenario where you have more players than you can actually use. But also, I know people will have reservations about the price tag. Selling him for £7 million when he arrived only a year ago for £11 million, expected to rise to £15 million. Now, my assessment is that that money has not rose to £15 million. Maybe it has risen to 12 or 12.5 with add-ons, with Arsenal winning the Premier League title. I do not know what the terms and conditions would have been for the achievable add-ons. It could have been if he played at least 15 Premier League games. And because he played 7, maybe some of those would not have qualified. But on the other hand, also, still, Arsenal are not a good selling club. I just do not know what happens. I don't know if it's teams. Teams just know that Arsenal are not good at selling, that you can lowball Arsenal and get away with it and get the player that you want. I don't know. But it feels like some of the players that Arsenal move on and the amount of money that they make for them or out of them, if you had given the same set of players to a Chelsea, to a Brighton, to a Newcastle, they would be able to make more money out of them. But also remember, what type of clubs are buying out of Arsenal? That is also a factor. Because if let's say Fulham tomorrow approach Man United for Luke Shaw, Fulham may get him for £20 million. But if it is Chelsea that came in for the same Luke Shaw, Man United are going to say, we're not taking anything less than 30 or 40 for that matter. So also that is, a key point. Look at what clubs have been buying Chelsea players. Kukurea, Real Madrid. Kai Havertz, Arsenal. Noni Madueke, Arsenal. Mason Mount, Man United. Andre Santos, Man United. So you have that bit of a pattern. Look at Man City. Man City make good money out of selling their players, especially players in the first team squad. We're talking about players that are still within their prime. Look at Alexander Zinchenko to Arsenal. About what? £35 million? Gabriel Jesus, £45 million? Julian Alvarez to Atletico de Madrid in the excess of €95 million. Ferran Torres going to Barcelona was in the excess of 40 something, So it depends on who you're selling to. But obviously the likes of Stefan Ortega, Ederson Morales, Manela Kanji, Nathan Ake have not fetched as much, So there's also that. Okay, you say you sign a guy and he plays 0 Premier League games and sell him immediately. He did not play 0 Premier League games. He did not play 0 Premier League games. Or he played Premier League. Never saw him. He did play. That's why he was eligible to get a medal, and he got a medal. Okay, fair enough then, but it's rather strange. It's not strange that a player comes at a club for 1 season and then he gets sold off. It's not rare. It may not happen as often, but it does happen. I don't know how long Romelu Lukaku stayed at Chelsea after returning from Inter Milan before he was sold off. These things happen, unfortunately. Remember Mohamed Salah joining Chelsea from AFC Basel, and then he was sold off. Kevin De Bruyne You know, these things happen. These things happen, unfortunately. Okay, Raymond Kanguma says Newcastle should sign Scalvini for 42 million euros. Okay. So Chelsea were crazy to sell Ash Santos. He looks really, really good. I don't think they were crazy to sell you Santos. First of all, they made a good profit on him, on his sale, because he cost them less than 20 million pounds, by the way. Joining them from, was it Vasco da Gama? Back in 2023. No, was it the summer of 2023? Yeah, summer of 2023. I can't even name 5 Premier League players who left after 1 year in recent times. Okay, it's one of those difficult questions to answer off of the fingertips. But I'm sure if we looked deep, we could find a number. I don't remember Ferran Torres staying too long at Manchester City, you know. Then you remember a player called Stefan Jovetic? Remember that he did sign for Man City, you know. But it does happen. It does happen, you know. So unfortunately, players come. I think Ferran Torres may have stayed at City for either season or two, 1 or 2 seasons. They're bad. I don't know. I don't know what his Premier League statistics say, but maybe they could give us an insight on how long he stayed. A good profit. He's looking like he might become one of the best sixes in the world. Well, not to get carried away, the potential is there. He's a versatile player. By the way, I've said this and I'll keep saying it. Andre Santos is more an 8-10 kind of player than he is a 6. But he can play the 6, you know. So Ferran Torres spent only 1 season at Manchester City, scored 9 goals and provided 3 assists, making 28 appearances. Oh, was it 1 season? 2? 1.5, maybe. 1.5. And then he left. So these things happen where players come and it's not a good fit or a perfect fit and they let you go. Alvaro Negredo, I don't think he lasted more than, did he last more than a season or it was 2 seasons? Alvaro Negredo at Manchester City. I'm trying to think. There's a player called Manucho Goncalves. He did sign for Man United. He signed for Man United back in 2008. And he played only 1 season. And he made 1 appearance for Man United. And he got sold. Obviously, he was first of all loaned to Panathinaikos, to Hull City, and then got sold to Real Valladolid. You know? But these things happen. No, not Gonzalez. Manucho Goncalves. The Angola international. If you remember him. You know? Okay, and I don't just give out those kinds of compliments lightly. I think 6 or 8, but more 6. I don't think a 10 for Premier League level. Like, no, I'm talking about the versatility and the kind of potential that he has. But obviously, you can play. You see, the beauty of young players is that they can adapt. We all know that Kolo Toure arrived at Arsenal as a striker, and he ended up being one of the best centre-backs in the Premier League. We know that Thierry Henry was a winger. We know Van Persie was a number 11, the traditional number 11, ended up being one of the best strikers of the Premier League era. So, yeah, you can always change the positioning of these guys. but predominantly he's been played as an 8. So if Michael Carrick sees him as a 6 and he thinks he can mold him to that effect, so be it. Okay, Gonzalez, that was my guy back when we didn't have Africans at United. I was excited at the time. Man United and Africans need to be investigated. Okay, of course, present day there's a Brani Belmo, Amadou Diallo, Nusa Mazaroi, but there's a time you almost felt that Man United and Africans being in the same centers was never a thing. I don't know. If players like, was it Great York? If certain black players had not played for Man United, the likes of Luis Saha, Antonio Valencia, would have called Man United racist, you know? But there's that period of time when you really, really struggled to hear an African player at Man United. Sir Alex Ferguson days, we never did it really in Lolo. Because they had a South African. He was called what? Quinton Fortune. Yes, Quinton Fortune was and Jemba. Yeah, you know, there's a couple, but it always felt like rain in the desert. You know of the Kalahari Desert, the one that occupies Namibia and some parts of that side of southern West Africa. Yeah, like now, modern day Man United also tried to say, okay, we'll bring in a Ben McCarthy as a strikers coach. It almost feels like, what is it called? There's a policy that they had introduced in the USA to give black people an opportunity. It's more like affirmative action, you know, where you say for every 10 white people you hire, you must at least bring in one black one, you know, kind of. So Man United almost felt like they were trying to obey a certain rule, you know. Otherwise, if it weren't for that, but anyway, you could say the same as about Arsene Wenger when it came to French players and at the expense of English players. And, you know, last season, okay, not last season, but the Pep Guardiola and English players. Pep Guardiola was always dodgy with English players. Obviously, all foreign managers in Premier League football know that in your squad, you must have an appeaser for English football. It's more like an appeasement policy that you'll have a Phil Foden, that you'll have a Kyle Walker, but innately, deep down, English players are not your thing. That you'll bring in a McKay at some point, and Nico O'Reilly will rise up to the occasion. But deep down, look at Arsenal. Bukayo Saka, star boy, well and good. Declan Rice. As we speak, Ben White has been on the fringes. So right from the back line, goalkeeper, midfield, forward line, majority of them are foreign players. So having a Bukayo Saka there, who mates being there, by the way, and Declan Rice, sometimes it feels like an appeasement policy. Okay, the only 3 players from Sir Alex Ferguson days, okay, Lolo, but somehow we still have many African fans, a quarter. And by the way, I don't know. Anyway, I do not know. It's just not one of those questions that I often ask Man United fans as to why they chose Man United. But for me, I'll give you an example. Choosing Arsenal, it was because of Patrick Vieira. I saw a black guy who I could relate to. As simple as that. So a lot of Africans support Arsenal because of Arsenal's history with black players. Nwanko Kanu, Kolo Toure, Now, some of them were not even African, the Patrick Vieira's, but Lauren Maya, you know, Yako Ascavino, Bakary Sagna, French player, but more black than Africans, some Africans, you know, to say the least. Like Alexander Songbilong, Emmanuel Shea Adebayo, like you always had African players with Arsene Wenger. You had an African player somewhere, you know, and they were giving them opportunities. Even the Moroccan international who came in from Bordeaux, I'm forgetting his name, the striker, Maroon Chamak, you know. So that has always been a thing, you know. So when it came to Africans, a lot of Africans supporting Arsenal, you could sort of understand quickly. Do you know how many in West Africa, how many fans have supported Chelsea because of Didier Drogba, Mikel Obi, Michael Essien, that sort of thing? So that it is a big attraction. Okay, Kolo Toure at City was definitely DUI, and to fix Pep's allegations, Loro, Yaya and Eto's allegations on to Pep. Tribe. The fact that Aguero has a statue at City and Yaya Toure none, it's incredible to me. Let me ask, how many black players do you know have statues at clubs? Like, I mean, African players. Let me ask, do you think Mohamed Salah deserves a statue at Liverpool, at Anfield? Ask a question. Do you think Sadio Mane deserves one at Anfield? For me, Yaya Toure, it's a no-brainer. If you've given Sadia Kun Aguero, if you've given KDB, I mean, Yaya Toure. I don't think Man City are ever going to get an African player as good. But, you know, I don't know if we do not talk enough about it. But it's something to really, really think about. Yeah, today basically almost single-handedly won them their first Premier League. As a United fan, never forget how devastating he was, especially during the run to the end of the season. You know, like it just like. Don't you think Didier Drogba deserves a statue at Stamford Bridge? Now, I don't know if Chelsea are into statues, because definitely Frank Lampard should be having one over there. But as you build one for Frank Lampard, you should also be considering one for Didier Drogba Investebile on another side. So, I don't know. There are players that, you know how players have been indicted in the Premier League Hall of Fame because of what they managed to achieve. There are players whose achievements are not as glittering as those of others, but their contributions, when you go back to the teams that they featured for, I'll give you an example. We sing a lot of praise for Sadio Mane and Mohamed Salah, and deservedly so. But do you know who often gets left out of that conversation? Firmino Barbosa, the Brazilian. He made those two guys tick. You know, he made that Liverpool attack tick. Right from midfield. Coming in deep, picking the ball, distributing it to Sadio Mane, Mo Salah, finding them in the right spaces. Doing the interchanges. When you see Sadio Mane speak about Firmino, you'll get to appreciate him more. That chemistry that they had. So, you know, anyways, Raymond Kangumba wants Newcastle to sign Joao Paulinho for 50 million euros. I think that's a deal that they can get. Joao Paulinho, the Portuguese international. What, is 31, 32 now from Bayern Munich? It's just the way it is. Black players probably do not even do their badges. Because what's the point? it's hard to get a top flight job. Even referees look at the Premier League. I think there is only one. I've seen. Does referee Farai Halam qualify for black referee? The one who officiated that game between Wolverhampton Wanderers and Manchester City last season. There's another guy who is a bit of a beefcake. I saw him in the Premier League. I forget his name. Now, when it comes to black players and doing coaching badges, I do not know if they consider doing them while there. But Yaya Toure got a job with Slovan Bratislava. He's the head coach now. But I know the opportunity is not given as often. However, I must say, even the black players must prove their worth. They must prove their worth. Like, it's not going to be handed to them on a silver platter. Because by the time Mikel Arteta gets the Arsenal job, they had already spoken about him glowingly, even though he had not been in any permanent role. Now you've had coaches like Yaya Toure, who has had a stint with Wigan Athletic, burnt his fingers, has served under Brendan Rodgers twice at Celtic and at Leicester City, has served under Pep Guardiola at Man City, and with the Man City under 18s. But he's not broken through to get a job at an Oldham, a Tranmere Rovers, that sort of thing. So they must also put a certain level of evidence to the table. I know you can only prove yourself when given the opportunity, but within we know how coaches go from being assistants to head coaches, and then sometimes some people are just good as assistants. Look at this guy. What's his name? Michael Carrick's assistant. The guy that had an issue with Ben White at the England national team. Really, he served under Gary Southgate. He was at Chelsea for ages, and he helped all Chelsea managers. Jose Mourinho, Gosidik, Andre Villas-Boas. I think, he's well experienced. Even he served under Antonio Conte, but always there as an assistant. How come he's never gotten himself a full-time job? He's never gotten himself that managerial job. Is he afraid? Has he never been approached? Or he just thinks of himself as, I'm only good as an assistant? Somebody help me Google that name. Carrick's assistant. Very, very experienced guy. Very, very experienced guy. Patrick Vieira, yes. Yeah, Patrick Vieira is one of those that has had a couple of opportunities, I think, with Nice, with Crystal Palace, with I think Genoa. So you need to prove yourself. Can you come to a club and pull up the magic, and be looked at as a Michael Carrick during his interim spell at Man United, and be looked at as an Arteta, and be looked at as a Xabi Alonso. You must, once given the opportunity, because sometimes it takes one person to succeed to open the door for others. That if, let's say, I'll give you an example with African players. If you sign a player from Senegal and he goes on to have a very successful career at Man United, clubs will start to think, maybe they are good players in Senegal. We should go there and try and scout them. That's the narrative. If you sign an Egyptian player and he goes on to have a tremendous career, people will start looking at Egypt and say, maybe it's home to some really, really good talent. Let's try and look over there. So, yeah, Steve Holland. Yes, thank you so much. So I think we're going to need to have that black manager that really, really excels for clubs to start thinking, maybe we need to keep our eyes out for black managers. Something like that, Okay. And he doesn't even ref, he just does linesman work. I know. Should have hydration breaks in the opening season of the Premier League. No. Now, I am okay with hydration breaks. They must be conditioned. One, they must not go on beyond 90 seconds. Two, they must be for certain conditions. Like if the temperatures are between, let's say, 28, 30 and above, the referee at his discretion will call for a hydration break. But once we make it a given, this business of players going for a hydration break when it is raining during winter, no, I'll not take heart to that. So I am okay with them for as long as they are conditional and they are shorter. Not these things of 3 minutes like the World Cup. 1.5 minutes. That is 90 seconds. That's enough for players to walk over, take in their water, and get back to their positions. And we carry on. That I can. Do you know why I can wait on that one? Because we've seen VR decisions taking longer. Now, obviously, one is going to argue and say, we've seen VR decisions take even 5 minutes, but you do not want a 3 minutes hydration break. Yeah, because VR decisions or waits or breaks are conditioned to a certain incident being reviewed. But making it a given for a hydration break for every game. Now, for example, some games are played during midday, afternoon. Sun is really, really hot out there. Europe has just gone through a heat wave. And so I would understand if, let's say, the season kicks off in August and they say, okay, the temperatures have gone a bit down, but they are not yet really, really down. We came from 38 to now oscillating about 28 and 30. So we'll have hydration breaks, as we've seen in some games in preseason, So, but I do not want it to be a given. Okay, and Patrick, why hasn't he gotten a top flight job since Paris? By the way, Arsenal considered giving Patrick Vieira the job at one point, forgot his name, but yes, he does most of the defensive organization. Yeah, it's hard enough. I'm sure they have to do double to get the players respect. Yeah, that's true. You have to work twice as hard to be looked at the same way. You asked the question, Tribe. I came late. What's your latest feeling on Vinicius Junior? Usually when this contract stuff happens at Madrid, it's their way of getting a player out. First of all, as an Arsenal fan, I'm not convinced he's going to sign for Arsenal or that Arsenal are going to get him. Maybe that's just me being pessimistic. On the objective part, and this is, I'm talking about objectively. One, imagine what Arsenal signing Vinicius Junior would mean for the Premier League. We are accustomed to Premier League stars going to La Liga, either Barcelona or Real Madrid. Oftentimes, a reversal of that would be huge. Vinicius Junior is one of La Liga's biggest players. So getting him into the Premier League will be huge for the Premier League as much as it will be for Arsenal. Now, what's the situation? Reports have suggested that Arsenal have agreed personal terms with the player. We know that Andrea Bata and Arsenal representatives have been in touch with Rock Nation, who are the representatives of, of Vinicius Junior. The two parties are haggling over a couple of things. Apparently, the actual wages are not an issue because apparently he's been getting he's on 18 million euros as net pay per year. Then Real Madrid have offered up to 20 million euros per year. But what they are haggling over is that Vinicius Junior wants Real Madrid to pay him a sign-on fee, more like a contract renewal fee. And then he's demanding for a very large percentage on his image rights. Now, to break it down for a novice, and I'll give you my layman understanding of this. This is the example I gave. Imagine you a company receptionist somewhere, or you're the IT guy. You have a 2-year contract. Now, the HR checks through your contract, and you have 1 month or 2 months left to the end of the contract. And they invite you for contract renewal talks and say, we are going to renew your contract, we'll give you a 3-year contract. But as show of appreciation for your work, we'll give you a 10% increase on your pay, or it could be a 5%, it could be a 1%, it could be a 2%, depending. It could be 50%, it could be 100% pay increase, depending. Because sometimes when you go into a job, you go as on probational basis. I'll give you an example. I remember my first contract was 6 months when I signed. So it's probational. If you hack it, then we give you what is a more longer term. How many times do you hear that an employee, upon renewing their contract, they got a bonus pay, just for renewing their contract? How many times do you hear that? So Vinicius Jr. is apparently asking for something unprecedented. Now, I don't know if it's just him trying to make the best out of it or otherwise. Then, image rights. How do image rights operate? I'll give you, this is from a layman's understanding of image rights. I cannot give you the ins and outs of everything, but I'll give you my fair share of understanding. When it comes to image rights, we know that players get gigs or deals, commercial deals, to be, let's say, a Nike athlete, to a Pepsi deal, a Coca-Cola deal, an Adidas deal to advertise their attire. It could be some suit company, it could be some beer company, whatever it is. It could be a perfume company, brand. Now, if that company, let's say it's Pepsi, as is the case with Vinicius Jr., if Pepsi is offering, let's say, Vinicius Jr. $1 million for 1 year of worth of adverts to use his face, in their promotions. If Real Madrid owns 70% of his image rights, that means Real Madrid earns $700,000 out of that 1 million, and then Vinicius Jr. takes the 300. That's my layman's understanding of it. This is not cast in stone, guys. If you find contrary views, please take them with your understanding of them. So then, what he is arguing now is that give me at least 80%, that's what is being reported, of my image rights. Therefore, if Pepsi is giving me a contract of $1 million, I'll take my 800K, you'll take 200 grand. So Madrid is saying that's too much. Apparently Arsenal are willing to give him that, So those are some of the conversations that they are haggling over. Now, 2, in asking for high wages, he's simply reflecting on how much Kylian Mbappe is on. He's simply saying, look here, guys, Kylian Mbappe has been here 2 years. He's on really high wages. He's a good player, but we've not won anything really since he's been here. I have been here for quite some time, since 2018. We've won 2 UEFA Champions League titles, probably 3 actually, because they won in 2018, 2022, and he was part of that by the squad against Liverpool. 2024, he was there, squad against Borussia Dortmund in the final. So he's been a key part of that. But also remember, there's also egos at play. Why? Because Vinicius Jr. was Real Madrid's poster boy. Even when Jude Bellingham arrived 3 years ago, he remained Real Madrid's number 1 face and poster boy. Then Jude Bellingham went and had an excellent debut campaign in which he scored, about 19 goals and provided 6 assists? And he sort of came closer to Vinicius Jr. in terms of being Real Madrid's poster boy. Now, once Kylian Mbappe came, he literally blew Vinicius Jr. out of the water. And he simply climbed over his head in that sort of pecking order. But remember, Kylian Mbappe came as a free agent. Therefore, Real Madrid did not spend £100 million to sign him. Obviously, for Vinicius Jr., was he 18 years or 16-year-old? I think he was 18 in 2018. Coming in from Flamengo. He was signed for 45 million euros. So, because Kylian Mbappe came as a free agent, he qualified for high wages, which is in addition to sign-on fees. So, when you arrive at a club as a free agent, for example, if you are United Road 10, you could negotiate you could be thinking to yourself, if Real Madrid were going to buy me, I would have cost them 80 million pounds. So I'm going to ask for Real Madrid to pay me 40 million pounds as sign-on fees. Just, giving an example. Not to say that will be the actual case, but just to give an example. Now, obviously, Real Madrid are not going to go in their coffers and pay you 40 million pounds straight up. So they would structure a deal as such to say, okay, we'll pay you the 40 million pounds, but we're going to give you 10 million pounds to offset, and then the other 30 million pounds will pay you on an annual basis. We'll spread it on an annual basis to say your contract is, let's say, 5 years. We'll be giving you, let's say, 6 million pounds per annum as sign-on fees in addition to your wages. Or if we have agreed to pay you 250 grand a week, we are going to make it 300 grand a week, just as the 100 grand is top up as sign-on fees for the length of your contract. So those sorts of modalities. So Vinicius Jr. has his arguments. Of course, there's precedent. Apparently, there's rumor. I do not know if it is this is gospel truth, but there's speculation that Real Madrid agreed to give Kylian Mbappe 100% of his image rights. Just thinking. That's what the rumors have it. I do not know it to be with absolute certainty if that is the case, but that is the speculation going on. So they are haggling over some of those details. Okay. Cristiano, Di Maria, Ozil, Casemiro, Varane. Yeah, those things happen that Real Madrid tend to use contract renewal talks to offset, to send out players, to get rid of players. But remember, look at where Real Madrid are as compared to where they were when they let those players go. I've said this before. Florentino Perez operates as the guy who is not afraid to cut off an arm to save the body. In other words, he sold Mesut Ozil in his prime, so was Angelo Di Maria. So much so that Cristiano Ronaldo was really, really mad at those sales. But they happened nonetheless. So, but at this point in time, I am not convinced that Real Madrid are trying to do that or execute that. Why? Because why would they weaken themselves further after 2 consecutive years without any piece of silverware? At the time of letting go of some of those players, they had one. With Angelo Di Maria, they had just won the La Decima. 2013, 2011, 2012, they had just won the La Liga title with Mesut Ozil being part of that. Obviously, 2013, they did not win it, but they were still very competitive. Casemiro, they had won the Champions League. You remember that era of Zinedine Zidane. So, and Cristiano Ronaldo, sort of same story. Okay, he lives for sure. He lives for sure. Just do not know if it's Arsenal. Without fail, when Madrid does this, the player leaves. They offer below what the player wants and do not really budge because they very much fight. Now, that could also be true. In this particular case, Real Madrid have apparently sent their final offer to Vinicius Jr. and have said, okay, if he doesn't agree to this, some senior figures within Real Madrid are saying, we do not want to lose the player for free, because remember, if he stays without renewing, that means in 5 months' time, literally, that will be January, he'll be allowed to negotiate a pre-contract with any club he so wishes outside the Spanish La Liga. So if he doesn't renew terms and it is out there in the open, who knows who will come else in to make a move for him. Man City could come to the table, Liverpool could come, Man United could come, PSG could come, Bayern Munich would come, just thinking out loud. And then it will be up to the player to decide where he wants to go. But as of present day, it is Arsenal that have put themselves to the forefront of that conversation. They are not the only club. That's according to the Athletic. They say other clubs are also circling around, monitoring the situation. But it is Arsenal that have come to the forefront. But negotiations in these cases are also they're also not straightforward. I'll give you an example. I, for one, I wouldn't be surprised if Vinicius Junior's camp were also using Arsenal with their genuine interest. That Vinicius Junior's camp were using that as a threat to Real Madrid to budge, to agree to certain terms, and then they sign. Because one thing we know with absolute certainty is Vinicius Junior loves Real Madrid. He would love to stay at Real Madrid. So, because let's be honest, going from Real Madrid to Arsenal is a downgrade. There's no conversations about that. So there's that. Okay, without leaving, okay, yes, I've never heard of that happening, Lolo. Basically, image rights equals how much the club owns you. Exactly, literally. Because when you get commercial deals, they get a part of that because you're under contract with them, So I think you're correct. Norgaard to replace Guimaraes at Everton. Yeah, that's true. That's a straightforward swap out. Idris Guimaraes had his contract run out with Everton, declined to renew, moved on, and now they've moved for Christian Norgaard. But thank you so much, Farouk, for joining the conversation. Apparently, Premier League image rights is much more split. Now, I do not know the inner workings of the Premier League's image rights and stuff like that. But like I said, there could be, it could be that the league has, I don't know. I don't think the league has image rights to the extent of a player's commercial deals. They have image rights when it comes to the broadcasting of you as a player being involved in games. That's why you do not see, I don't think it's the Premier League that sanctions players to go for certain deals, Because remember, even in these deals, a player has to get a green light from the club because you could want to do a promo with a brand that is controversial if it is seen in line with the club, So a bit of a delicate path there. But I think it's not much different from what I just explained. Okay, but we'll wait and see. His thinking is fair, but I think Madrid are happy for Kylian Mbappe to be the face. The teams are more balanced without both are on and off the pitch. Jose knows that. Now, when it comes to that, yesterday somebody asked me, was it yesterday or today morning? Somebody was asking me a question. Who would Real Madrid get to replace Vinicius Jr.? And my first answer was, if Vinicius Jr. left today, they do not need to replace him. No. What they would need is go in the market, get a good central striker. I don't know who that is. Play Kylian Mbappe off of the left wing, fix the right wing, because I've always argued Real Madrid need a right winger. That left-footed player, other than Franco Masantuano, that is an elite player that can play off that side. So that's what they need. Because Kylian Mbappe, Vinicius Jr., Rodrigo Goes all love playing coming off the left wing. And by the way, the arrival of Kylian Mbappe to Real Madrid disrupted that. That's why it ended up with, okay, we'll play Kylian Mbappe centrally, we'll leave Vinicius Jr. to the left, and then push Rodrigo Goes to the left. Vinicius to the left and Rodrigo Goes to the right. So it caused a bit of a disruption. But Kylian Mbappe is not the kind of player that you say, if I bring him, he will disrupt us. For a club like Real Madrid, who relish themselves as having the Galacticos, the best of the best. The idea of signing Yan Diomande for me at Real Madrid still baffles me. Yes, you could look at him as a Vinicius Junior replacement, but that wouldn't be my first thought about all this. Unfortunately, maybe for us or for football, is that even the strikers market is so narrow that there's not many elite out there. They've just signed Carlos Epi from Levante to replace Gonzalo Garcia, as a squad player. I don't think he's going to be that regular starter, but you never know with Jose Mourinho, So when you look at the strikers market, you have a broad Erling Haaland. Igor Thiago is a one-season wonder so far. We do not know what he's going to deliver next season. Hurricane is not going to leave Bayern Munich. Lewandowski is as good as gone. Dusan Vlahovic has not really hacked it with Juventus. Victor Osimhen, he's out there. You don't know what is going to happen with him. Like, you scout the market for an elite striker, and really those options are really limited. So, but maybe Real Madrid would look to play a fluid front three as PSG. Simply play Kylian Mbappe to the left, get Endrick to play for you centrally as your striker with Carlos Epi as a backup, and then you have Rodrigo Goes to the right, even though he does not love to play there. Okay, Franco Mastantuano is going to be sent out on loan. Find a good player to that wing or on the right. Now the question is, who is it going to be? You remember when we were discussing, when he said he wanted to make a Marquis signing, we wondered, was it going to be Lamine Yamal, a figure 2.0? Was it going to be Michael Olise? We dwelled on that and nothing has happened. So, yeah. So I think if I'm Real Madrid and I've lost Vinicius Junior, my key thing would be to get a fix for the right wing as opposed to focusing on the left. Now, Yan Diomande is a player that can play on both wings. But that price tag, Jesus Christ. Anyway, maybe he will get to prove me wrong. Somebody described him as the next Nicolas Pepe. I don't know why. But that's about it. Okay. Yes, true. He could come to United. We need someone for the left side. True. Now, when it comes to Vinicius Junior leaving Real Madrid, I cannot say with absolute certainty that if he decides to leave Real Madrid, he's going to go to Arsenal. It's not a given. You never know which players could come in for him. You never know where his heart could settle at, because if it's about the money, clubs have money. Chelsea would be in the conversation. You never know. 2 years. It's like the Premier League clubs do not go deep into interesting themselves in image rights. They do, but look at it this way. Signing a player like Vinicius Junior is going to cost you an arm and a leg in just transfer fees. That is no less than 120 million pounds. 2, you're going to need to disrupt your wage structure, especially if you're not Manchester City. But if you're Liverpool, if you're Arsenal, if you're Chelsea, if you're Man United, whichever other club in the Premier League, you're going to have to disrupt your own wage structure. I'll give you an example. At Man United, Sir Jim Ratcliffe has been hell-bent on managing that wage structure, not putting players on exorbitant wages, lavish wages. Chelsea operate under the same model. They've put literally a wage cap and they've made their contracts more incentivized. That majority of what other clubs are paying in high wages, they're compensating in bonuses, something like that kind of model. So if you're getting a Vinicius Junior, is the kind of player that is going to cause you to disrupt your wage structure. So one of the ways for you to stay within the confines of not, because remember it has a domino effect. If you bring Vinicius Junior today to any club and put him on 400 grand a week and your highest earner was, let's say, on 250 grand a week or 300 grand a week, the next time you're looking to renew any contract, all those players, the big other sort of fairly good players within the team are going to say, we have been loyal to this club. We've been here for quite some time. Vini is on 400 grand a week. I want 300 or 350 or 380, So it has that sort of domino effect. So you also have to look at the long term. So one of the ways of avoiding paying Vinicius Junior the kinds of wages that maybe Brad Erling Haaland could be on at Manchester City is by saying, we'll leave your image rights to you so that you earn more money directly there. And then you also tie other monies into bonuses, loyalty payments, because also at Real Madrid, should Vinicius Junior see out his contract, he would be due a very significant payment in terms of a loyalty bonus, because these are clauses in contracts. If you sign a 5-year contract and you see it through, or you see through at least 3 years, you'll earn, let's say, £5 million or 5 million euros as loyalty bonuses, all those kinds of things. So you can imagine what that would mean. So if you're Man United, if you're Arsenal, you're thinking, take the example of Arsenal. The moment you sign Vinicius Junior and put him on 400 grand a week or 450, the next time you're looking to renew Declan Rice's contract, he's going to be saying, oh, he's on 400 grand a week, I want 350. Some will happen with maybe a Kai Havertz. Some will happen maybe with a Bukayo Saka. Some could happen with maybe, I don't know, a William Saliba. That sort of thing, So you must be akin to that, You must be akin to that. But also, as a team, you also look at what commercial value does the player bring in for you. This player comes in, he's going to bring you a lot of commercial value. Vinicius Junior, for example, is such a huge brand. If he moved to a club like Man United, their shirt sales are going to go through the roof. Arsenal, if you move to Arsenal, they'll be in record numbers. Same to Chelsea, same to Man City, you know. So then when you go to the negotiating table of commercial deals with advertisers, you'll be telling the guys, look here, look who I have in my team. So whatever it is you're looking to advertise with me, either on my shirt sleeve, if you deal, whether you're a wines company, yeah, Vinicius Junior is going to be appearing along those lines. So in other words, where you'll be getting £1 million in advertising revenue, you are likely to ask for 1.5 or 2 million, just because you have the imagery of, you know, Vinicius Junior to your club. So that is also there. Enric is a good striker. Enric, I like Enric, looks a good striker. Okay. Yeah, Lolo, Diomande is rubbish. I'm sorry. I don't think he's rubbish. I just don't think he's as good as advertised. But I wait to be proved wrong. Yeah, 100%. If Vinny comes, then we have to match Bruno's. Bruno will want an increase, rightly so, because remember, he will be saying, even the Saudis came for me. They were going to give me 650 grand a week, but I said, let me stay at Man United, you know? So give me some credit there. And maybe fortunately for Man United, Bruno Fernandes is aging. He's already in his 30s. So Bruno might even have a highest earner at all times clause, so an automatic increase triggered by Vinny. Sometimes we will forget these are clauses in players' contracts. You'll be surprised when people read you the details of players' contracts, the kinds of things that they agree to. Sometimes clubs agree that they will buy a player a new car every season, or they will do something like, or they will afford his family a trip every year, like paid for by the club. Sometimes they agree to these things, and you're thinking to yourself, really? That was also negotiated for? I mean, out of all the much money that you earn, you cannot take your family for a family trip. Anyways, it is their money and their careers. How much is Declan Rice on now? I do not know. I'm really, really not sure. But I would want to think it's north of 200 grand a week. So you can imagine. Sorry, tribe, that guy is rubbish. Jesus Christ. A midfielder who can't even receive under pressure, can't break the lines with either pressing or running, dribbling, yeah, exactly. I can't wait for us to phase out Bruno. Crazy. Anyways, so basically, that is what happens with the players' contracts. So for Real Madrid, that's the rationale, because simply Vinicius Junior wants to be valued as much as Kylian Mbappe is valued, because of his overall contribution to the club. Real Madrid are saying, we did not spend money to buy Kylian Mbappe. Therefore, whatever it is we are paying him is in almost compensation for that, that we got him as a free. Whereas for you, you've been at the club, we paid money for you, we have invested in you to keep growing, and you have become a brilliant player, well and good, and we cannot pay you as much as we pay him because of reasons A, B, C, D. Maybe we are willing to do that. But also remember, the thing about agents or player representatives, they also do their due diligence on the club, because what you promise another player is not a pop conclave secret. No, it's not a conclave secret. Somebody is going to say something somewhere, because I am sure that Rock Nation must have done some digging and had some of the clauses in Kylian Mbappe's contract, and they're thinking to themselves, our player should be getting all those benefits, So, and now Real Madrid have to haggle over that. But anyways, the sooner that holds, thing gets resolved, the better we will be. Because I, for one, I'll be interested, because the thing about these transfers is that the longer you cling on waiting for a certain player, you could lose out on the player, and then that could affect you. You'd want to have that clarity that this is going to happen or this is not going to happen, and then you move on. But then others would want to play the waiting game. Now, remember, Real Madrid has been signing players on free transfers, playing the waiting game, and speaking to players and their representatives and say, just see out your contract. Kylian Mbappe, Trent Arnold, Ibrahim Konate, all those have joined as free agents. Of course, in addition with the, Bernardo Silva. There. So when it comes, Bernardo Silva, for him, he was first released by Man City and then eventually joined. But Madrid have been playing that sort of game, to avoid paying high transfer fees for these players. So it wouldn't hurt, even though I'm a Real Madrid fan, for them to feel a bit of karma for once, to lose the top player as a free agent. Because being served the test of their own medicine maybe would be a bit of an awakening. When was the last time Real Madrid paid 100 million euros plus for a player? Have they ever? By the way, come to think of it, have they ever? Because Jude Bellingham was about 80 million euros plus, thereabout. Tchouaméni, 80 million euros. Camavinga, less of that. Cristiano Ronaldo, 80 million pounds. But that feels like so many years ago. Gareth Bale, maybe, But how many of those? Today, Man City, Jack Grealish, 100 million pounds. Elliot Anderson, 116 million pounds. Look at Chelsea. Enzo Fernandez, 107 million pounds. Moises Caicedo, 115. Morgan Rogers, 117 million pounds. See? Have PSG paid for any player for 100 million pounds? No. Have Bayern Munich? They paid 100 million euros for Harry Kane. That's their most expensive buy. Barcelona paid hundreds of millions. 100 millions plus for Coutinho, for Dembele, But somehow, Real Madrid keep getting top players, elite players, for free. So, you remember David Alaba joining them? He joined them as a free agent. That's how they also wanted to get Alphonso Davies from Bayern Munich. So there's that bit of an element. You say Rooney and apparently Terry and Gerrard all had highest earner at all times, close. Quite interesting. Rooney even said it himself long ago. Wow, not so long ago. Yep, those criminals, Bale, Morgan Rogers is still making me laugh, So, players have weird clauses in their contracts. If I don't remember the conversation, but I remember stumbling into a conversation about Neymar and some of the clauses that were in his contracts pertaining holidays, birthdays, and I was thinking to myself, come on. You have to be allowed to go away to, apparently, William Esteva. In his contract, he's supposed to be allowed to go back to visit his family. Can't you wait during an international break, and even though you're not someone to the international team and you go, some of these things, can't you just ask, maybe, because when it is part of the contract, it becomes an obligation. If you just put in the request, they may not grant you the leave. But, wow, some of these things, Anyway, it is what it is. That no matter who you sign, they cannot earn more than I do. Can you imagine? But so who is the next big star? I wouldn't be surprised, by the way, if Real Madrid, Michael Olise is entering his third year into his Bayern Munich contract. And remember, he's what, 24? By the time he sees out that 5-year contract, he's possibly going to be 26, coming on 27, thereabout. I wouldn't be too surprised if tomorrow he declines to renew his terms. And suddenly, we hear these reports of how Real Madrid are whispering in his ears and waiting to land him on a free. Try. JJ Gabriel, I'm telling you, he's going to be a superstar. That boy, okay. Have you monitored him at all? He looked good today, 15 years old. No. I to be fair, when I'm watching preseason games, I'm watching them passively, not as actively as I would watch a normal league match, because I know it's an opportunity for youngsters to showcase what they are capable of, and once they look a bit brilliant, they're going to get sent out on loan to try and fast track their development. Because trust me, breaking through Man United out of the academy, that is not easy, because it is a competitive club. How many Marcus Rashford has Man United brought out ever since Louis van Gaal left the club? Look at Kobe Mainoo. Because it's so difficult, United have always wanted to replace a Rio Ferdinand, a Paul Scholes, a Roy Keane, a Ruud van Nistelrooy. But look how difficult it is. And yet hundreds of children go through Man United's arms at the academy level. It is okay, we could see flashes of your brilliancy, but go back to Emerson Greenwood. And that's why, for me, I'm always pained that for PR reasons, Man United part ways with Emerson Greenwood, because I thought that boy was going to be really, really elite for Man United. He was going to really, really thrive. So it's really, really hard because there's that boy called Shia Lancy. He looks brilliant. He looks really, really brilliant. But even him, there's no guarantee that he's going to make it at United. That's how difficult it is at those top clubs. So they use preseason to showcase these kids more to the world, so that championship clubs can come and sign them, on loan. Championship clubs, League One clubs, that sort of thing, And then they go and get more playing time and gain that, experience. But oftentimes, they would come back to a club maybe for a season or two, and then before you know it, they're being sold off, So, yeah. Rashford was a mistake. He wasn't even spoken about as a big one, coming through. He just got lucky. We had many injuries at the time, including other youth players like James Wilson, who were ahead of him. There's a kid, Brandon Williams, the left back. I remember there's a time, I think under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, he looked brilliant. But guess what happened? He fizzled away. Now, Marcus Rashford, he was never spoken of as an exciting Man United young talent out there. But when he was given that opportunity, I don't remember the exact club he made his debut about, but I remember he played against Midtjylland in the UEFA Europa League. He scored a brace. Came up against Arsenal the subsequent weekend, a brace, and the rest is history. There's no turning back. So he grabbed his opportunity with both arms, and the rest is cool, So that's sort of the thing. Shia, he looks good. I think he will be with the first team this season, though. He's too good for a loan. Now, usually, the thing about loans is for the player to get consistent playing time. That's why they are conditioned. We are giving you this player on loan. You're not going to pay any loan fees. We just want to guarantee that you're going to give them the playing time. so that they can develop, because that's what big clubs want. Because they're competing to win trophies. Oftentimes, their threshold to test so many youngsters is really, really small. They're about the business, you know. That's why even for a competition like the Carabao Cup, you'll play with a couple of youngsters, you know, second team. As soon as the team sees an opportunity, if we beat Tottenham Hotspur, we go for the semi-finals, and the semi-finals will be at Wembley, or will be home and away, and we'll get through. That is when the big boys start to come out now, because we have come to the business end of the competition. We now want to win it. So, you know, and remember, even for the Carabao Cup, how many games are there? You're going to play at most 4 or 5 games, you know. So, okay, to be honest, Tribe, from his debut, I've never liked him. I've never rated Rashford. Wow. Now, that's a personal test or preference that you've never liked the guy. True, that's true. But he looks ready. Let's see. Yeah, I've seen him be given moments, and he's looked brilliant. You never know. He could be. But we've been there when Alan Smith was coming through. We've been there when Macheda was coming through. But you must prove yourself. You must prove yourself. Every small opportunity you're given, you must show something that fans cling onto to even demand for you another time. Because when you're a player that young, it takes 1-2 bad games for you to be literally forgotten. I'll give you an example. Manchester United signed Aiden Heaven from Arsenal. But every time Aiden Heaven is given an opportunity, he looks like the next big thing. He's not without his mistakes, but he looks really, really solid. He puts in the shift, you know. But remember, he's around the same age profile with Lenny Euro. But if you ask the Man United fan, between Lenny Euro and Aiden Heaven, choose one to keep and one to send out on loan. Who do you think they're going to choose? You know. So for every little opportunity you're given, you must put in the shift. You know, you must show something. That capability. Look at Patrick Dogu. He's young, you know. He's young, but he's shown that he's capable. But remember, what happened to Tyler Malacia? He also came as a youngster. Did it work out? No. Okay, it's true. Same with Adnan Januzaj. He felt good. Yeah, Adnan Januzaj. I mean, wasn't it that season when David Moyes was there? He ended up going to Sunderland. He had the stint at Real Sociedad. I don't know where else. Adnan Januzaj. So these things happen. With these young players. So that's why for me, pre-season, I'll put on the game if I have access to it and passively watch on it to see who is looking okay. You know, if I'm not going to celebrate just because a Joao Pedro has scored or a Richarlison has scored. No, I want him to score in the actual season. I remember when Darren Benty signed for Tottenham Hotspur from Charlton. Was it Charlton? And then he scored 10 goals in pre-season. And then when the season started, he scored 1 goal in 10 games. So eventually it never worked out. He went to Sunderland, and at Sunderland he had a brilliant spell. He ended up being signed to Aston Villa, and the rest is history. From Aston Villa to Fulham, etc., etc. You know, so these things happen. He ended up at a Derby County at one point. But I remember at Charlton Athletic, yeah, he was a hot cake. Tottenham Hotspur jumped ship. 4 games in pre-season, 10 goals. Bang. Tottenham were like, this is the magic bullet. 10 games into the actual season, 1 goal. So football is like that. That Sunderland team was one of the most exciting front line I've seen in the Premier League. Bent, Welbeck, Jan, remember that? Yeah, Samoa Jan. Very, very little, you know. So that's the story with young players. But anyways, allow me to call it a wrap. It's been a wonderful conversation to have with you, United Road 10. Meanwhile, when you joined us, I bid my people goodbye. I was signing out. And then you posed questions that caused us to have these conversations. You know, these conversations, but it is what it is. That's the beauty of football. When you meet the right people and engage in the right conversations, you can literally speak only about the beautiful game. So it's been a pleasure. Farouk, United Vote 10, and every single one of you that has been part of tonight's podcast. It's been a pleasure having this conversation with you. No morning broadcast tomorrow, but we'll be here for the night broadcast, provided God grants us the health and the life. True. Till next time. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Stay blessed.